Okay, let's unpack this. Welcome to the deep dive. We're cutting through the noise today, diving into your sources.
Yeah, pulling out the really important insights from, well, what feels like a flood of AI news right now.
Absolutely. The pace is just incredible. AI is touching everything, legal fights, new funding, government stuff.
Even how these models think, or, well, if they think,
Mm.
it's impacting so many different areas.
So our mission here is simple. We want to help you quickly get a handle on what's happening and, why it actually matters, all based strictly on the material you shared.
Think of it as your essential briefing, a shortcut to staying up to speed on today's AI world.
Right. Let's jump straight in then, starting with some pretty big funding news. Ashton Kutcher is involved with an AI startup, Landbase.
That's the one. Landbase just closed a significant round, yeah, $30 million.
Wow. Okay. And their focus,
It's all about using AI agents for marketing outreach.
$30 million just for marketing agents. So the sources are asking, can a startup like this, really hyper-focused, actually, compete with big tech here?
Yeah, or even outperform them. And it kind of begs the question, why marketing outreach specifically? Why is that such a hot area for AI agents?
Good question. What's the thinking?
Well, AI agents are really designed for these kinds of specific high-volume tasks. Tasks that need personalization, follow-up.
Like marketing outreach,
Well,
exactly.
precisely. Finding leads, crafting messages, managing all that communication at scale. It's, let's face it, pretty tedious for humans.
Definitely.
But it's kind of perfect for an AI agent built just for that job.
Yeah.
So land-based, they might have an edge because they're specializing. Their agent does one thing potentially better than a general AI tool from a giant company trying to cover all the bases.
Ah, okay. So it's that focus versus breadth argument. Makes sense.
Yeah, real test case.
Okay, moving from private funding to the public sector, we're seeing AI pop up in government operations too. The FDA, for example, they've launched their own agency-wide AI tool.
They have, yeah, it's called ELSA. And the stated goal, well, it's about speeding up their scientific reviews and just making operations more efficient overall.
And obviously with the FDA, data sensitivity is huge. Security must be paramount,
Absolutely critical, and the sources really stress this. ELSA is built in a high-security GovCloud environment,
right?
and this is key. It doesn't train on the data submitted by the industries it regulates. That's like built in to keep things confidential.
It's crucial for trust. So how are they actually using ELSA day to day? What are the practical applications?
Well, we're seeing it used to help streamline clinical protocol reviews, aiming to cut down evaluation times.
Okay.
It's also helping identify high-priority inspection targets. It can generate code, compare drug labels, even summarize adverse event reports.
So real tangible stuff impacting their workflow.
Huh.
And wasn't there a comment from the FDA commissioner about the rollout?
Yeah, pretty notable. He was quoted saying it was ahead of schedule and under budget.
You don't hear that often with big government tech projects.
Not really, no. It suggests some pretty effective internal collaboration got it done.
That's definitely a positive sign for AI adoption in public service. Now let's switch gears and tackle something that causes a lot of anxiety: AI's impact on jobs. We hear so much about mass unemployment, but one report you shared gives a surprisingly positive view, supported by folks like PwC's Joe Atkinson.
Yeah, this report really challenges those common doomsday predictions. The main takeaway seems clear. The data, at least according to this report, suggests AI is more about augmentation, about value creation in the workforce, not just replacement.
Okay, intriguing. Tell us more. What does the data actually show? What's the evidence backing this positive outlook?
Well, first off, they found AI is significantly boosting productivity. Since 2022, in industries heavily exposed to AI, I think software publishing productivity growth apparently almost quadrupled.
Quadruple? Wow.
Yeah, and revenue per employee is like 3 times higher compared to less AI-exposed fields.
That's huge. What about wages?
Second point, wages are rising significantly. Workers with AI skills, they're earning 56% more on average than peers without those skills.
56%.
Yeah.
That's a big jump from last year's figure, wasn't it?
It was 25% last year, yeah. So a substantial increase. And wage growth in those heavily AI-influenced industries is also running twice as fast.
Okay, so higher productivity, better pay for those using AI. But what about the actual number of jobs? Are those AI-exposed roles just disappearing?
That's the third point? No, apparently not. They're still growing, just at a different rate. Between 2019 and 2024, less AI-exposed roles grew by 65%, sure, but the more exposed roles still saw pretty significant growth, 38%.
Okay, still growing. And what about the inequality argument? That AI creates a small elite of high-paid experts.
Point four kind of pushes back on that, too. The report argues AI is not necessarily driving inequality. In fact, it might be broadening access.
How so?
By reducing the need for, say, a specific traditional degree for certain roles, if you have the AI skills, maybe that opens doors. And jobs augmented by AI are seeing increases in both employment and wages.
Interesting. What about the fear that AI just de-skills jobs?
Yeah.
Makes complex work simple.
Point five tackles that. They argue AI actually enriches roles. By automating the repetitive stuff, it frees people up for higher-level thinking, decision-making, creativity.
Like the data entry example, evolving into data analysis.
Exactly. That's the kind of shift they envision.
And even for jobs that look like they could be mostly automated.
Point six suggests even there, automation can increase the job's value. In roles seen as highly automatable, the data apparently shows wages climbing and the remaining human tasks become more complex, more creative, needing judgment alongside the AI.
This paints a really different picture, doesn't it? Not replacement, but augmentation. Making people more productive, creating new, better-paying roles, enhancing existing ones.
That's the core argument, yeah. It suggests a shift in the nature of work. Less about displacement, more about adaptation and skill development.
Framing AI adoption almost as a solution to things like labor shortages by boosting overall productivity.
That's definitely the perspective in this particular report.
Okay, let's pivot again. Dramatically, really, to the legal arena. We're seeing a lot of friction, a lot of lawsuits emerging, especially around AI training data and AI-generated content.
Oh yeah, this is a huge flashpoint. It all centers on intellectual property rights. And a really big development is major Hollywood studios, Disney, Universal suing Midjourney, the AI image generator.
Right. What's their core claim?
They're alleging Midjourney basically pirated their massive libraries of copyrighted work and that it's now generating and distributing innumerable copies of their biggest characters.
Like who? Did they name examples?
They did. The sources mentioned Darth Vader, Elsa from Frozen, even the Minions, all being generated without permission. And it's apparently the first time major Hollywood studios have gone after an AI image generator like this.
That's significant. So it looks like creators versus AI companies. But then you have the Getty Images lawsuit against Stability AI, where the framing is a bit different.
Yeah, Stability AI, in their court filings, argued that Getty's lawsuit is actually a threat to, quote, the wider generative AI industry itself.
But Getty pushed back hard on that idea, didn't they? Their lawyer, Lindsay Lane.
She had a strong counter, yeah. Her point was basically, look, this isn't creatives versus tech. She argued the two can work together, that copyright is actually critical for AI's advancement. The issue, from Getty's perspective, is simply AI companies using creative work without paying the creators.
So it's about compensation and licensing, not stopping AI.
That's their stance. And this whole debate isn't just in U.S. courts. There was a related policy thing in the U.K. recently.
Oh, right, the data bill.
Correct. The U.K. passed their data use and access bill, but crucially, they did not include an amendment that would have forced companies to declare if they used copyrighted material for AI training.
Even though creative groups were pushing for it.
Exactly, despite criticism. So you see these battles playing out in lawsuits and in legislation globally.
It really highlights this fundamental tension, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Who owns the training data? Who benefits from the output? What counts as fair use now? The legal ground is definitely still shifting.
Absolutely. The outcomes here are going to shape things for both creative industries and AI development for years to come.
Okay, let's move from the legal side to the tech itself. Specifically, how these AI models actually work. Or maybe, what their limits are. Apple put out some research touching on this.
They did a paper with a, kind of provocative title, The Illusion of Thinking.
Illusion of thinking. Sounds like they're pouring cold water on the AI hype.
A bit, yeah. Their argument is that large language models aren't really reasoning in the way humans do. They're incredibly sophisticated pattern matchers operating on massive amounts of data.
But the sources discussing this also raised a counterpoint, right?
A very practical one. Does the academic difference between pattern matching and true reasoning actually matter if these models are good enough to, transform how we work and do complex things?
Or if it walks like a duck and quacks like a duck?
Sort of. The business world seems less fussed about the semantics and more focused on the capabilities. What can these tools actually do?
Which makes sense. And related to capabilities, there was that study using game theory to see how AI handles more social situations.
Yeah, this is interesting. Published in Nature Human Behavior, they tested models like GPT-4, Claude 2, Llama 2 in games that require coordination or compromise. Classic stuff like The Prisoner's Dilemma, Battle of the Sexes.
And how do they do?
They struggled, apparently, with aspects of social intelligence.
Struggled how? Like they couldn't play the game.
Not exactly. Sometimes they were almost too rational, but in a narrow way. Like in Prisoner's Dilemma, they defect immediately after being betrayed once, even if cooperating more might have been better overall. Or in Battle of the Sexes, they might just rigidly stick to their preferred choice instead of trying to find common ground, even if the other player's strategy was predictable.
So failing because they lack that social nuance, that flexibility.
Kind of. Too logically rigid for complex social interaction. But they did find something that helped.
What was that?
A prompting technique called social chain of thought. Using that significantly improved their performance in these games. And interestingly, it also made humans perceive the AI as more human-like.
So how you ask the AI makes a difference in its apparent social skills.
It suggests you can guide it to consider perspectives beyond just its raw data. Yeah. Prompting matters.
And speaking of improving capabilities, especially reasoning, Microsoft had some research on smaller models.
They did. Their work pointed to a reasoning-first approach, basically suggesting that even smaller AI models can become more capable if you focus the training or prompting on emphasizing step-by-step reasoning processes.
Which ties right into OpenAI's latest model, doesn't it?
It does seem that way. OpenAI just launched O3 Pro. They're calling it their most capable model yet. And the big focus is explicitly on improving multi-step reasoning for tough tasks, math, coding, physics problems.
And it's available now.
Yeah, for ChatGPT Pro users and developers through the API.
Okay, so while the philosophers debate true reasoning, the industry is clearly pushing hard to make AI act like it can reason better to solve complex practical problems.
Exactly. Capability is driving development.
Let's shift again to another really critical area, security flaws and worries about data use as AI gets woven into everything.
And there was a big one recently, the EchoLeak vulnerability found in Microsoft 365 Copilot, described pretty starkly as the first zero-click AI vulnerability enabling data exfiltration.
Zero click. That sounds bad. How did it work, in simple terms?
Well, it exploited a combination of things. How Copilot handled certain text formatting, markdown syntax, plus issues with web links, open redirects within Microsoft's own domains. This created a loophole. It could basically trick Copilot into leaking data from its context, its temporary memory, without the user clicking anything at all.
Yikes. And the source discussing this said it's related to older issues.
Right. They connected it to classic prompt injection problems. The underlying issue, they argue, is what they call an LLM scope violation. Essentially, the AI model gets confused about where different pieces of information came from once they're all mixed together in its processing context.
Like blurring the lines between instructions and data.
Kind of like SQL injection, yeah. It highlights a fundamental security challenge with these systems.
And on the data use side, more legal action. Reddit suing Anthropic.
Yeah, Reddit's basically saying Anthropic just took their content for training without permission or regard for their rules or users.
Unlike OpenAI and Google, who they say have licensing deals.
That's Reddit's claim. They're drawing a line, saying Anthropic feels entitled to take whatever content it wants. And obviously, Reddit's user content is a goldmine for training LLMs.
All those conversations on every topic imaginable.
Exactly, decades worth. So Reddit is asserting its rights and presumably wants compensation.
And another lawsuit, this one from Meta, targeting these nudify apps.
Right. Meta's going after a Hong Kong firm, Crush AI. They allege this firm promoted apps designed to create fake nude images and tried to sneak ads past Meta's review process.
Part of a broader crackdown on deepfakes.
That's what Meta says, yeah. A new crackdown on these kinds of harmful images on their platforms.
So, taking together these sophisticated hacks like EchoLeak, the big legal fights over training data rights, companies battling malicious deepfake apps, it really paints a picture of the ongoing security and privacy headaches as AI expands.
It definitely underscores that building safeguards and clear rules for data use is just as vital as improving the AI itself. You can't have one without the other.
Beyond these major stories, AI is just popping up everywhere, incredibly diverse applications and tools.
It really is spreading like wildfire. You've got Google's Weather Lab working with the National Hurricane Center, testing AI for cyclone forecasting. That's high-stakes stuff.
And robotics.
Wondercraft raised $75 million for AI-powered robotics, suggesting growth in physical AI applications, too.
And the hardware raise continues.
Oh, yeah. AMD unveiled new GPUs, the MI350X and MI355X, specifically for AI workloads, claiming big performance gains. The demand for power just keeps growing.
We're also seeing AI creep into consumer products, maybe faster than we realize.
Well, Meta's launching AI video editing tools in its apps, though the sources said it's kind of limited initially, like they've got the handbrake on.
Interesting phrasing.
And then there's Mattel partnering with OpenAI, developing AI-powered toys. That shows AI entering completely different consumer spaces.
Even education is adapting. Teachers in England got the okay to use AI.
For low-stakes tasks, yeah. According to new Department for Education guidance, things like lesson planning, maybe drafting emails.
And something I found fascinating and that AI giants are suddenly investing heavily in. PostgreSQL, a 30-year-old database.
Yeah, that's a surprising trend. Companies like Snowflake buying Crunchy Data, Databricks buying Neon. They're betting big on PostgreSQL. The sources suggest it's seen as really foundational for building reliable AI agents. Apparently, its speed and flexibility with different kinds of data make it ideal, even though it's older tech. Shows robust foundations matter.
But it's not all smooth sailing. AI integration has hit some bumps, user experience-wise.
Definitely. Wikipedia had to pause its AI summaries because editors basically revolted. The reaction was summed up as just, yuck.
Not subtle.
And Google's AI overviews have had those embarrassing hallucinations, like blaming Airbus for the Air India crash when it was Boeing.
Ouch. Those kinds of errors really erode trust.
They do. It shows that accuracy, reliability, and just basic user acceptance are still major hurdles, even as the tech gets rolled out more widely. The systems are powerful, but still brittle in some ways.
So this whole section, hurricane tracking, robotics, new chips, AI toys, database tech, education guidelines, user revolts, AI mistakes, it just shows the sheer breadth of AI spread. It's embedding itself everywhere, with both huge potential and very real growing pains.
Absolutely. It's an explosive, sometimes chaotic, but undeniably widespread wave of development and adoption.
Which brings us towards the end and to a maybe more philosophical point raised in one of the sources, a piece called AI for Humanity, the Guardian's Vision.
Right. This one steps back from the daily headlines. It frames AI not just as tech, but as a kind of mirror.
A mirror reflecting our hopes, our aspirations.
But also our flaws, our biases, our values, magnifying them.
And it proposes this idea that we need to act as guardians of AI.
Yeah. To consciously steer its development. The call is really to make sure AI amplifies human dignity, creativity, well-being, to learn from history, you know. The printing press, the Industrial Revolution, the dot-com boom technologies that had massive unforeseen consequences.
So the core message is about responsible stewardship.
Exactly. Designing AI with purpose, protecting human dignity, fostering innovation responsibly, ensuring it's accessible and benefits everyone, not just a few.
And that responsibility isn't just on the tech companies or governments.
No, the piece argues it's on all of us. Individuals, policymakers, builders, businesses, citizens, everyone has a role in shaping AI's future.
We have covered a lot of ground today, from venture capital and government AI tools, through major lawsuits, debates about AI thinking, security scares, this huge range of applications.
All the way to these fundamental questions about guiding AI responsibly.
It's definitely a complex and fast-moving picture.
Understanding these different threads feels pretty essential right now.
Well, thanks for joining us for this deep dive into today's AI news.
My pleasure.
And as you, listening, think about this incredible pace of change in business, law, daily tools, even how we think about humanity's future, maybe ask yourself this. What single aspect of AI's evolution feels most important for you to keep a really close eye on in the coming weeks, and why?